Welcome back to the Wandering Star Farmhouse and our June version of the Pantry Challenge. I don't have a whole lot of home canned pantry goods left at this point. But I have a lot of other store-bought pantry items that we are using for this pantry challenge. And then the greatest thing of all is that this time of year, our pantry is starting to include fresh things from the garden. For tonight's dinner, I am making a shepherd's pie. We have some ground beef left over. We bought a whole bunch of ground beef for my son's graduation open house, and we ended up with leftovers. So I'm using some of that to make this shepherd's pie. I just brown that up with some onions, and I don't drain the fat off and just use that as the fat for making a roux. So then I just sprinkle on about a quarter cup of flour, pour in a couple of cups of milk. Then I season it with some thyme and parsley, salt and pepper. And I am dumping in a bag of frozen vegetables. I forgot that the whole reason I wanted to make this was I was trying to come up with a way to use some of my canned green beans, but it was really good with the mixed vegetables. I'm topping this with some instant mashed potatoes from our pantry. In the fall, I bought quite a few boxes of instant mashed potatoes because I had heard that there was going to be some potato shortages this fall. And I don't know what you all have been experiencing. You know, I can't say for sure if there were or weren't potato shortages this fall. It seems to me when I go to the grocery store that there continues to always be food available at the grocery store, but not necessarily consistently. It seems like there's always certain things that are just completely gone. And it seems like those things change every time. So the grocery store is never empty, but I often go and can't find particular things I'm looking for. Or the other weird thing that we've noticed, different brands aren't consistently available. Then the other issue, of course, is inflation, and groceries cost significantly more than they did a couple of years ago. So I think there's people who are cutting back on their grocery budget, and so perhaps there was less potatoes this fall compared to previous fall, but perhaps people were buying less because they can't get their grocery budget to go as far. So I can't quite figure out what's going on with groceries and food in the country right now.
Now I'm making Moco Loco.
What is Moco Loco?
It's hamburger patties, brown gravy, served over rice, and with a fried egg on top.
All right, today Jeremy decided to make food for us, and he's making us a Hawaiian dish. But basically, you cook up ground beef patties like hamburgers and put them over rice with this gravy made of onions and top it with an egg. And I contributed some fresh chives from my herb garden, but other than that, Jeremy was just channeling his Hawaiian heritage for that meal. So today is my son's birthday, and he has requested a pumpkin pie for his special birthday treat. So I made a double crust recipe, and I am going to roll one of these out for pumpkin pie. I do have one more butternut squash that we grew in the garden last year that is in my pantry, and I really should roast that and use that in a recipe like this, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to go ahead and use some canned pumpkin. And of course, we love always having fresh eggs from our chickens. It really is just my favorite thing to be able to get food from my backyard and not have to go to the grocery store for it. I'm adding the typical pumpkin pie spices, a little bit of a nutmeg explosion here. That looks like the right amount, but I apparently don't have any more ground ginger, so I'm just using some fresh ginger. That I have a bunch of fresh ginger that I've bought for a different project that I'll have to make a video about that another day. We have a big family and a lot of birthdays, so we don't all necessarily just eat the typical birthday cake on our birthdays. A couple of my kids don't actually like cake and or frosting, so we definitely like to keep things mixed up for the birthday treats. We prefer pumpkin pie served with a dollop of whipped cream, but my cow is just saving all of her cream for her baby. We are still eating beef from our quarter beef that we bought in the fall. So we had a couple steaks this day, and I made some sweet potato fries with these. I am waiting for some sweet potato slips to arrive in the mail. I just had a complete failure of trying to sprout my sweet potatoes that I saved from last fall. I'm really excited to grow those this year. When I made that pumpkin pie, I made a double crust recipe, and so I had one more crust. When I was at the store a week ago, I picked up some rhubarb stalks. We have a little rhubarb growing in our garden. It is the special plant of my second son, but our rhubarb is not big enough yet to really harvest from. So I picked up some of these big stalks from the store and decided it would be fun to make a strawberry rhubarb pie. We actually do have a few little strawberries ripening in our yard as well, but this is obviously just a building year for us, as our first full year on the homestead is coming to an end. The rhubarb and the strawberries are really just so pretty together, just that bright red color. I will admit, I just really am in love with real food and the beauty of food as it grows and comes from the earth. So this recipe just adds some sugar and a little bit of flour and just a tiny bit of cinnamon to add some flavor to the filling, and then you mix that all up and add it to the pie crust. Since I only had one pie shell left, I made a crumb topping to go on this rhubarb pie. That's just some butter and flour and brown sugar, and I crumbled that on top to tuck all those fruits in, and put the whole thing in the oven to bake until it is beautifully bubbly. So the final thing is, Jeremy has become a lot more interested in hunting and trapping since we moved out to our property. So Jeremy actually trapped a rabbit this week and fried that up. Wild rabbits are obviously not as plump as if we might raise our own rabbits, but that's not something that we're looking at getting into right now. But we do need to keep the rabbits out of our vegetable garden and out of our fruit orchard, so that they don't destroy all those plants and the food that we want for ourselves. Jeremy breaded up these rabbit pieces, and everybody got to try that for a new experience. Well, thanks so much for stopping by today. Like I mentioned, we are approaching our 1-year anniversary of living on our property. So we are going to do an anniversary video soon and give a whole update on the homestead and how much it has progressed since we moved in a year ago. So hit subscribe and don't miss that video.